In this video, I'm going to discuss the capital markets line. The capital markets line is a line where the x-axis is standard deviation of our returns and the y-axis is our target return. And the capital markets line represents the portfolio with the lowest standard deviation for a particular target return. So for example, we're looking in this spreadsheet at a target return of 4.5%, and the spreadsheet is set up so that the standard deviation is smallest. The standard deviation of that portfolio that will return us 4.5%, the smallest standard deviation we can achieve is 4.2%. Okay, this was done in a separate video. We talked about how we calculated this standard deviation. We talked about the fact that the portfolio that we construct contains some percentage of the risk-free asset and a percentage of a risky portfolio. The risky portfolio is the portfolio which has the highest Sharpe ratio. Okay, so now what I want to do is just talk through or demonstrate the capital markets line as a line, again, in standard deviation versus target return. So let's start by looking at a target return which is equal to the risk-free rate. So my target return in this case is 4%, and my risk-free rate is also 4%, and the smallest, the portfolio with the smallest standard deviation, where we can achieve a return of 4%, has a standard deviation of 0 because we're putting 100% of our money in the risk-free portfolio. Another portfolio that's worth looking at here is the one that has the same return as the risky portfolio. Again, the risky portfolio is the one with the highest Sharpe ratio. And what we find here is that we invest all of our money in the risky portfolio. So when we have a target return of 5.2564%, the standard deviation here is 10.5516. Okay, we have 2 points, so we have a line. Let's find some other points. First, let's choose a return somewhere in between that 4 and the 5.25%. So maybe let's say 4.75%. Okay, this is a portfolio where we're going to have some money, about 60%, invested in the risky portfolio, and some money, about 40%, invested in the risk-free asset. And if we look at this point, we have 4.75% as our expected return, and the standard deviation of those returns is 6.2987%. And you'll see this lands on the same line. Let me finally do one more. Let's say we wanted an expected return of 10%. An expected return of 10% is interesting because we have a risk-free asset of 4%, which returns us 4%, and a risky portfolio that returns us 5.25%. And the way we achieve a return on our portfolio, a target return of 10%, is that we borrow money. We borrow money at the risk-free rate and invest that money in the risky portfolio. So we have to borrow 377% of our investment at the risk-free rate at 4%, and we invest all of that into the risky portfolio. And so to achieve a target return of 10%, I have to have a standard deviation of 50.3895. And as you see, we're still on a straight line. So basically, this capital markets line represents the standard deviation versus target return of our portfolio. Again, the portfolio consists of risk-free investment and an investment in risky assets. And what it says is that that target return versus standard deviation is a straight line. And of course, this makes sense as a straight line because the target return minus the risk-free rate divided by the standard deviation the Sharpe ratio of that portfolio is a constant. And so it makes sense that this relationship between standard deviation and target return is linear.